then you know you've started. Greetings and welcome. I don't know if you heard that voice. I hear it every. Todd, did you
Oh,
hear
we
that
heard.
voice? Does everybody hear that?
I heard that.
Okay, so everybody's hearing it. Hi, I'm Mike Linder. We're starting off a little irreverently today. I'm publisher of E&P Magazine. I am Nashville based, and I'm honored to have you join us again for another of these insightful, what we call sponsored webinars. We're pretty selective here at E&P in when doing these. We get many requests, but we want to make sure that when we're bringing these to you, our coveted audience, the people that we're truly serving in our industry, we want to make sure they have value to you. And this one I think is going to be extra special because it's really diving into one of the most important factors we have, which is top line revenue. And more importantly, how can we serve our customer base better? But before we get to that, quick housekeeping. We are on Zoom, duh. We're on Zoom, but there's so many ways to get our attention on the panel here. There's like this Q&A thing, there's this raise your hand thing. I want you to do me a favor and ignore those puppies. And I want you to use only chat today. And here's what Zoom does. Zoom defaults chat to host and panelists only. I'd like you to push it down to everyone. I'd love it when the chat room becomes a second forum going on. If we have a topic that you want to augment, question, add something to, you're just as important as us up here. Please, by all means, say it. If you've got a question that you'd like to have us respond to, put it in chat as well. We're going to keep our eyes on it. And of course, now lurking in that chat room is also one of my closest friends, Dawn Trubo. She is the business development manager of our wonderful sponsor today, Visidia, and she will also provide any extra insights, put extra meat on the bone as well. Now it's time to introduce our coveted guest. First of all, Rachel Newman Shapiro. Thank you so much for not only joining us today, but for also supporting E&P and our mission to help local journalism thrive and be sustainable. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm honestly honored to be here, and I am really, really looking forward to today's conversation. So thanks for the invite.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it too. We spent a lot of time prepping for it. There's some really cool insights here. Everyone stick around. Todd Handy, can I call you a close friend, sir, or not? What do you think?
Absolutely, you can.
You and I have bumped into each other at more conferences over the years. You have been they called me. I got nominated for an E&P Digital Pioneer Award in 2003. That's how old I am. I put one of the first newspapers online, but I would say you're up there as one of the leading, I guess, just strategists when it comes to helping the news publishing community adapt and full disclosure, you're also writing for us here at E&P, giving some very thoughtful and insightful articles we have under the SAS banner. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here, and I'm grateful to Rachel and Visita for inviting me.
All right. So, Rachel, let's get to work here. This all boils down to research that you guys do, and that's why we love Visidia, because you guys just don't provide products and services, consultations, and support to the news publishing industry. You do something that I think is just so important. You find out the pulse of what advertisers want. Can you describe this research that we're going to base this entire dialogue on, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by saying that the research isn't actually live yet. So this is the first official sneak peek into the insights from the survey we ran. I'm personally invested in this survey because I don't think we ever spoke about this, Mike, but I actually have some background in monetizing publications. So before I joined Visita, and this is over a decade, I've been in Visita for 7 years, but before that, I spent some time in ad tech. So I've become really familiar with publishers, and I know how this world is evolving and changing. And there's always, the publishers are probably one of the most innovative communities I've come across. These guys are always after what is the next big thing, what is the next way for us to generate revenue, reinvent ourselves. And I also do have some background in online advertising for small businesses and local businesses specifically. So to me, this is kind of just like everything coming together. I get to, speak to publishers who work with small business advertisers, and Visita is a company that serves organizations that serve local businesses. So it's kind of just all coming together here, and I'm super excited. This survey was conducted just about 6 weeks ago. It was basically aggregates insights and thoughts from over 500 small businesses. So those are, the local advertisers that work with the publishers. There's some data on the screen about, who these people are and why their opinion matters. But most important, I just think these people are, it's almost like you can open a door into the mind of your customer and understand, what are these people after? What are they going to pay for? What type of services matter most? And we at Visita are really excited about bringing this knowledge to publishers. We work with publishers, we partner with them in different ways, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But it's all about kind of staying on top of the trends, bringing our publisher partners insights into small business trends and uncovering untapped opportunities. And I'm really excited about diving into that today.
It's funny when you guys brought us this research and again, it's not ready for publication, but everybody who is registered for this webinar is going to able to get it for free, correct? We're gonna give them downloads. The slides you're seeing, if you're starting to take pictures of your screen, take a breath. You know how we operate here at ENP.
No worries.
There's going to be a recording sent out later today. There will be a complete write-up on this, and every slide you're seeing will be in your hands. But Rachel, the reason I'm going to take some of your time, and I know this is your time, but I started as a disc jockey, and then I got into radio that way, and then I got into radio sales, and my first management gig was in the 80s. Went to a convention, met my hero, Mike Joseph, guy you never heard of. He invented Top 40 radio. And everybody said he's Connecticut based. Everybody said he was an idiot because how dare you think you can play the same 40 records over and over again? But what he did was research. You see, he actually had the unmitigated gall, he said sarcastically, to poll his audience and found out they wanted to hear the same damn record. He became a multi-millionaire. Then he launched Hot Hits. But when I met him at the convention, I got a chance in an elevator. I said, Mr. Joseph, you're my hero. You're so famous. Can I ask you, this is a true story. I said, can you give me quickly, before you get out of this elevator, some advice? You know what he said? He said, find out what they want and give it to them. And I have never forgotten that. I mean, every time my mind is going astray, I got caught in the weeds. And as we take this journey, and I was just thinking of that story, because what we're doing here is we're going to unpack and look at what the heck they want, and then more importantly, see how we can find the solutions to avoid this big crisis of churn. So with that being said, let's unpack and start. I understand there's some really there's good news in here. Am I right, Rachel? So
Absolutely.
Give it to me. What is the good news we see in your research? Go ahead.
So we'll start, with this really great validation for all the publishers out there that serve the small business community. So small businesses, this is a huge segment we're talking about, right? This is over 90% of global business are small businesses. So it really is, almost an endless opportunity to capitalize on. And what publishers have been doing over the last, decades and continue doing really well is becoming a strategic long-term partner for these SMBs, so these small, medium businesses. These small advertisers, they love seeking out local opportunities to get branding campaigns, lead gen campaigns, and the publishers are just a really good host for these campaigns, and they're almost seen as trusted advisors. And when we look at some of the data from this survey, we can see that the numbers, show that so many small businesses currently work with media publishers and local publications. This is really one of the main marketing kind of home bases for these guys. And many of them also feel very comfortable and happy about the results. So they feel that, they're able to gain more exposure. They're able to, successfully get their name out there, get their brand in front of the people that they want to be in front of. And that's super reassuring and really, a really great point to kick this webinar off with.
Todd, do you have anything to add when you looked at this data?
Yeah, what I would say is this. I agree exactly with what Rachel said and with what the numbers say. And that is this. Publishers are the audience builders. They're the ones that have the relationships with those target audiences that the SMBs are looking for. So SMBs tap into those audiences by working with publishers. That's why it's so critical for publishers to show the value, which I know we're going to get into. So as an SMB, if you are looking for those target audiences, one of the best possible partners you can work with is some type of a TV, newspaper, radio, media company.
Thank God. And by the way, I'm Michael B, not me. There's a Michael B in our audience asked in chat. Michael, this was the thing I was discussing with these guys when we were planning this yesterday. Hold on to your thought about What about branding campaigns and how will they, we're going to get to that, I promise you. So just let us go with the flow. So let me say, okay, now that we've seen some good news, think that we're in the right place at the right time. Are publishers truly champions for local business? Let's talk about these SMBs. What are they trying to achieve by working with us? Okay, Dawn, so let's start with you on that one.
So I'll take this one based on, some of the another interesting question from the survey. And when I was looking at the questions before we started collecting the data, this was actually one of the questions I was most excited about, because we had a long list of, what local advertisers care about most. And if you pull up that slide, you'll see that the numbers really show that it's not all that complicated. They're very, very simple. And I think it looks like we're looking at the slides with the notes. So this is almost like we're giving them a sneak
Oh, I
peek
am so
into
sorry.
what we're about to say.
Oh,
No,
what,
no,
please forgive me. We do make mistakes at E&P. I'm going to go to the full screen slide. How is that? Is that better?
Okay. No, it's good. It keeps things interesting. Everyone loves to know, oh, what's coming next? What are they going to ask?
Yeah. Okay.
So, so anyway, in the good old days, or not such good old days, but in the past, it was kind of just very simple. You pay for advertising space as an advertiser, and that's that. How many people see the ad, cut the ad out, put it on their fridge, maybe you'll know, maybe you won't. But those days are gone. Attribution today is just getting smarter and more complex. And small businesses aren't just seeking, they don't just want to pay for the ads and hope for the best. They want actual tangible business results. So they're looking for more leads that are coming into their pipeline. They want to see actual customer acquisitions, and they want to see more website traffic or likes on their social media page or whatever it is. So I think if I had to summarize what this means is that small businesses are really looking for that tangible business value, and they want to see the ROI on that dollar spent on advertising.
Todd, what jumps out at you when you look at these three numbers?
I totally agree with what these numbers say. Whether or not they're the percentages that any of us would have expected, this is what this sample size is saying. My soundbite for this is value for money is a churn killer, right? If you're bringing in that value, that's going to ease the churn. The more they spend with you and the more return they get, the more they'll keep spending with you.
So if these businesses value lead generation above all, and I get that too. When I'm dealing with our advertisers at E&P, we always ask that question, are you here for a brand build? Or are you here for lead gen? They always say a bit of both, but then they push into that. I would prefer, I want to fill that pipeline. They are likely to prioritize lead generation activities over general brand awareness. I mean, this is number one. Am I correct, Dawn, in 100%?
So
I think
Rachel? Yeah.
Rachel, I meant. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No worries. It's all good. Dawn is here too. So she's all hands on deck on the chat. So if anyone's asking questions there, you just know that Dawn is there to take those questions and chat with you, as we go through these slides. But I will say that I agree that it's about a balance. And I'll also say that sometimes after working with, small business advertisers, sometimes what they say is we want exposure, but what they really mean is we want to have, 10 clients, 10 new clients by the end of this month. So when they say exposure, you're imagining, oh, they just want to have their logo, paste it on a page or broadcast it over the radio. But what they're really saying is, we want these leads. And I think it's important to listen to that and understand that sometimes small businesses don't speak the language like we do. They don't talk about lead nurturing and lead generation and lead attribution the same way we do. They don't always have the verbiage to describe those business needs. So that's where I think, it's also our responsibility as the people that facilitate, these small businesses' growth to understand that it's always going to be a combination of exposure with actual lead generation activities.
So these are the KPIs. This is it. This is what they want. Todd, does this surprise you, or is this something you just expected to see?
Doesn't surprise me at all. And back to the question in the chat around brand building. In local media, one of the examples I use all the time is an advertiser looking for brand building would be a personal injury attorney, right? When you need a personal injury attorney, you need to already know that brand and have an idea of who you would call. It's very rare that I'm going to get in an accident, happen to tune into a website, a broadcast, read a newspaper, happen to see the ad and go, oh, that's who I'm going to have to take care of my personal injury, right? It's going to be who I've got in my long-term brain. And so if I'm looking at these things here, number of leads, engagement rates, conversion rates, those have got to be built up based on the brand over time. So
All right, so if they valued lead generation above all, let's prioritize everything. What does this scream to you, Rachel, when you gave me this slide to display? Go ahead and unpack this.
So these are among the long list of services we asked these local advertisers about. These were the services that they said are they're most interested in, and this is what they're most likely to purchase from media providers and publishers. So I think when you take a closer look at what are these businesses most likely to pay for, that these are kind of these are table stakes. Everyone nowadays has a website. Almost everyone is doing social media ads. So I would like to think of these as almost the baseline, right? So this is in a way already venturing out of that traditional role of broadcasters and publishers, whether print or digital. So I think this is where some of the gap is. If small businesses and local advertisers are expecting these, anyone that isn't offering these services or at least offering something similar is kind of missing out on an opportunity here, because these local advertisers are going to buy these services from someone. And why not make that someone you? That's the way I like to think about it.
Gordon Burrell, I believe in his last study, this number is always diminishing. I remember in the days when a local business would chat with up to 4 to 5 media companies. That was like a decade ago. I think it's now maybe talking about, isn't it like south of 3 right now, Todd?
Yeah, it's in the two range, 2.1, 2.2, something like that. Yeah.
So if an SMB is only going to talk to 2.1 or 2.3, somewhere around there, businesses about their needs, and these are the needs, you're basically saying offer what they want or you ain't going to be one of them. It just boils down to that. So while publishers want to be true partners with SMBs, what's the elephant in the room? What the increasing churn rates that keep publishers up at night? What are they, and how bad is it, if I may ask, Rachel?
So, Mike, to be completely honest, this next slide is actually breaking my heart because it was all sunshine and rainbows up until now. And we were so happy about, the publishers and the broadcasters and the media folks being kind of the champions of the superheroes of the small business economy. But now when we look at these slides, we have to wonder, what went wrong? Why are we looking at these double-digit figures, high double-digit figures, when it comes to the number of small businesses that will leave their media publisher within the first year, and specifically within the first, between the 6th and 12th month of them working together? And that really doesn't leave you much time to be, if we were speaking about being ROI positive, ideally, if I was running, ads for a customer, I would want more than 6 months to be able to establish a real sales cycle for them and be able to, feel really good and confident and comfortable about those results. So, and I think results is really the key word here, right? If we're talking about what are these small businesses looking for within these first 6 to 12 months, it's all about those results. And when you ask them while they're switching, it's all about not achieving the goals. I think lack of transparency. This was also a pretty popular answer. And this is just my interpretation, but when I imagine lack of transparency, I actually think this might be transparency around results. So transparency, when I say lack of transparency, I think that could also just mean like, hey, what am I even paying for here? What am I getting at the end of the month that justifies, I'm a small business owner. I'm not some, multi-billion-dollar corporation. This money is the money I have to invest in my business. I can either hire another person or maybe open another location or invest in this money with the hope of growth. And if I'm not seeing results, I'm just going to take my money somewhere else. So for me, transparency is very closely linked to results. And then finding a better offer, there's always going to be a competition. It's pretty fierce out there in this space. So I think that's also just an indicator of how so many organizations need to also think of, well, what differentiates us? How are we different than the folks 3 doors down the road?
Todd, you were the one mentioning to me, we were discussing this as we were planning the webinar, that as you consult media companies and you've had, years of experience, being in charge of large sales forces, it's a shame, but when you walk into a month, you're down from the start. Am I right? I mean, we got to accept that, period. Right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the accepted number with most market managers across all media companies is that you'll have about 35% churn on a monthly basis. So as you start day one of the month, you got to go get 35% just to get back to whole by the end of the month, let alone if you've got growth goals of any kind. And so you have to figure out how to kill the churn. And Rachel nailed it here, right? If they're not seeing the value, they're going to churn. So the way that I put it is, if they're spending $1 with you and getting 87 cents, they're not coming back. If they're spending $1 and getting $1, they might continue, but they probably have other ways that they get better returns within their business. They spend $1 and get 2, 3, 5. They'll just simply say, how about if I give you 10, 20, 100, right? They're going to stick around. You have to show the value.
Rachel, you even have a more detailed breakdown of the reason behind this churn. Am I correct?
Yeah. We care a lot about, churn and the reasoning and what causes it. We an anecdote, this is probably one of the most cliche anecdotes. Everyone likes to say it, but it's true at the end of the day. Acquisition of a new customer is anywhere between 5 to 7 times more expensive than just retaining an existing customer and expanding the lifetime value of an existing customer. So when it comes to why our customers are leaving and why we have to find ourselves chasing nonstop after new customer acquisition, we better get down to the science of it and understand what makes small businesses churn. So I think goals, we've established that not hitting those goals is always going to be a killer. If you look at the other answers that were quite popular, lack of transparency, we spoke about, finding another offer, we spoke about, price changes. So that's, I think, a matter of, price is almost like the flip side of value, right? So if you're delivering enough value, I feel like the price tag can be appropriate. If you're charging, if you're increasing prices or adding, different add-ons that aren't delivering that value at the end of the day, you cannot justify the price. So I think price always has to be kind of weighed out with the value. Poor customer service was really surprising to me here. And I wonder where this comes from, because from what I've seen and from the publishers we work with, I do see that publishers are excellent at providing services. And the fact that small businesses and local advertisers refer to publishers not so much as a vendor, but almost as a partner and a trusted advisor. So I feel like this is maybe a little bit of an anomaly. And I'd love to dive into this deeper in maybe our next survey and understand where this comes from. Because from my understanding of this space, so many advertisers actually love the publishers they work with. And when they have to leave, it's always a little bit sad.
Todd, what pops out at you?
So the numbers make perfect sense to me, and probably in the order there as well. Again, it gets back to being able to show the value for what they're spending with you. Again, Rachel said, could I hire another employee? Is there something else I could do? I use this example all the time. I want to take my family to Disneyland, right? This $3,000 that I might spend with you for this campaign could pay for my family to go to Disneyland. At the end of the time, if I don't have value for that, then I haven't gotten anything out of it.
Aaron Beecher's asking a very good question to everyone. What's the best message to establish clear goals for an SMB to set their advertising investment? I don't know. I'm an old school sales guy. Do you want me to take a stab at this, Rachel, or do you want to answer
Please
this?
do. I'm intrigued.
I think I did it with you. Maybe I did when you and I first met, or it was with Dawn, I think was my first meeting with your company. And I said, what are your goals? Clearly, what do we want to do? I showed previous examples of how we prove it to other advertisers. I showed reports. I'm clear. This is what we're going to try to accomplish. And I don't do PowerPoints and stuff. I show the actual, this is what we try to achieve. Is this something you're looking for? So I'm actually that transparent even during the sales process. Todd, does that make sense to you? Do you think that's
Yeah, so I'm jumping up and down on this when I saw that question come in, and I've been chomping at the bit. Here it comes from me, Aaron, for you and for everybody else. We as media companies have spent a lot of time building out client needs analysis, CNAs, right?
Yep.
The CNA that you need to be using with your advertisers, especially SMBs, has 4 questions. Number 1, who are you trying to reach? Number 2, what do you want them to do? Number 3, how are you going to measure that? And number 4, what's the return that you're looking for on that, right? So who are you trying to reach? That's obviously the target audience. What do you want them to do? Do they need to click a banner? Do they need to make a call? Do they need to come on site? Do they need to buy something, right? How are you going to measure that? Is it click-through rate? Is it dollars of sales converted? Is it conversion funnel? Is it downloads? And then it gets back to the ROI. If they spend $1 with you and you give them $3, they will keep spending. It's a 4-question CNA.
And we'll do our best to get that embedded in the page we'll send you a link to, because it doesn't change much, does it, Todd?
No.
I've been training salespeople in media since the 80s, and I'll tell you, the media chefs, we know that, but the sales process, all this really does add up. I like this next I call this a transitional image. Do you agree with me, Rachel? Because this is where I say, okay, what's the secret sauce? What can be done? And here you're showing the churn rate, correct?
Yes, so this is where it kind of spikes after 6 months. You're always going to have that trickle of, advertisers that weren't quite sure what they're signing up for, decide to put everything on hold because there's a seasonal slope or, for whatever reason it is. Sometimes businesses, will close down altogether regardless of their willingness to spend on advertising. But I think the real peak kicks in 6 months onwards. And that means that between day one and how many days are in 6 months? I should have calculated this before. That is a window of an opportunity. That is where, as providers of media and advertising services, this is crunch time. This is where we need to start delivering fast, showcase value, ASAP, and make sure that by the time we hit that 6-month mark, we're in a good, comfortable position with a customer where we can have an open conversation about goals, results, where are we, what we've hit so far, if there's a certain gap, we can address it and talk about it and have a conversation. And I think that's also a message that I would love for everyone to take from today, that it's okay to have ongoing conversations around goals. And, with attribution and transparency and the level of detail that's provided in many of the reporting systems today, there's nowhere to hide. Everyone can see exactly how these campaigns are performing, what the engagement is looking like. And if those numbers aren't quite where we want them to be, having an open conversation around it and having a plan in place to say, well, I see we're not quite where we wanted to be, with this channel or with this campaign, but here's what we're going to do about it. And, that's also, I've been in SaaS now for more than a decade. And that's something we practice a lot in SaaS as well, because we work in an extremely kind of high margin environment. That's the perk of SaaS. But we have the benefit of speaking to these users on a daily basis. So that's a very regular conversation we have with our users.
Todd, are you jumping up and down to chime in on that? Because
No, it's the same thing. Everything Rachel said, right? You've got the clock starts running on day one. By day 180, if it is 6 months, if you haven't shown the value, you're going to be lucky to stick around. That's what's great about SaaS, is it builds in renewable revenue that you can count on month in, month out, right? In media companies, every 2 weeks, right? First of the month and 15th of the month, we have to look at our forecast and see what we're going to hit. You have to do that with SaaS. You know what you're going to do.
All right, Rachel, let's turn the page now, okay? Let's talk about how can publishers be confident in the value they are delivering? I mean, let's start getting into the weeds here, if we may, and put some meat on the bone. And I can't think of any other metaphors, but go ahead.
Well, this is there are 3 strategies that I kind of thought of bringing up today, and this is based on my experience, on my side in VCTA, who works with publishers. Working with the publishers I've worked with, this is what I've seen work well for them, and I'd love to kind of hear feedback from the folks that are on here. If these are things that you've considered, if this is something you try, what your insights are. Like Mike had said at the beginning, this is an open conversation, and we'd love to kind of bounce off ideas that you might drop in the chat at any moment. So let's start with going back to the slide of, what are these SMBs, what are these local advertisers actually looking for, and try to recall on, what are their goals. So we spoke about getting more leads, more customer acquisitions, and more web traffic. So that's pretty straightforward, right? You would think that you're either hitting those goals or not. So the question is, are we hitting goals? That's one question. But then there's deeper questions we can be asking about leads, because 2 out of 3 are really about leads here. So let's go to the next slide and look at the questions that I think anyone that is in the lead generation business should be asking themselves. And these can create uncomfortable conversations, and that's okay, because we're here it's all about transparency and kind of growth out of where it hurts and where we're not super happy with the results. So first of all, if we work super hard to generate these leads for our customers, are we confident in their ability to take those leads and convert them into paying business, which then translates into money in their bank account? And are we doing everything within our power to help them do just that? And it comes down to really small details, like even, are we delivering the leads in a way that empowers our customers to respond on time and develop a meaningful conversation with that lead on the other side? And Todd, I see you're nodding, so I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I could not say enough how I love this slide because as a media company, if you're sending leads over an email, right? You're sending leads over to the general manager of the small business or whatever this is. Let's say it's a roofing company, right? There's a person who gets up on the roof and actually nails the roof and has to follow up on the leads and everything else. If you're sending those over an email, number one, how do you even know that they were received? Do you know if they worked on them? What have they done with them, right? If this were some enterprise business where I were sending things into Salesforce and I could see Salesforce and who had made a call on it and when they converted everything else, that's something different. SMBs don't have that. So if Visita is that layer that's in there to be able to help publishers understand, that's key because I can't tell you how many times I've had advertisers cancel. They've said, well, we got a whole bunch of phone calls, but we didn't get any conversions. And you say, okay, well, tell me, how quickly do you return the phone calls? Well, I don't know. How often do you follow up on those? I'm not quite sure. Okay, so basically what you're saying is you don't know what you've done with this, but you're putting the blame back on me.
We got to work harder, don't we, guys? I mean,
Absolutely.
let's pause for a second and address the inconvenient truth. And I hope you understand what I mean by that, Rachel. But we can't just say, "All right, I did my job." Those days are gone. Do you agree? I did my job. I look at this. Here's the click report. I sent him to you. You didn't. You lose if you don't. It just doesn't work that way. They're busy too, and they need a true partner. Is that what I'm kind of getting here, Rachel?
I think I love it that you use the word partner because to me it really is a partnership. If we're generating these leads and these are just potential business, right? And like you say, we can't just dump the leads on the local advertiser and say, hey guys, work your magic, we're done. Because at the end, their failure to convert those leads is our failure to retain a customer. So it really is a partnership. We really have to go beyond that lead delivery, maybe optimize even just the lead delivery itself. Is email a realistic channel? I've seen sometimes, advertise publishers and media providers that send a spreadsheet at the end of the week. Oh, here's someone that called you on Sunday. If someone called me 5 days ago because their roof was leaking or they need someone to mow their lawn or they wanted to book, their next nail appointment, in those 5 days, there is absolutely no way I didn't find someone else if that first business I called never got back to me. So that, we have to, and there's so many ways to deliver leads in a way that empowers small businesses to convert them. So I think this is homework for anyone that is on this call today.
One of our E&P advertisers, and I'm not going to mention them, but a very large, successful supplier of services to this industry, asked me to break things down for their sales folks. And I was honored to do it. I had to become a partner, insert myself in their Zoom sales meeting, but why not? Sometimes maybe that's what we have to do to take it to the next. Todd, do you agree with all this? It's time to really step up our game.
Absolutely. This is where Aaron's question in the chat comes right back into it and where the 4-question CNA that I brought up comes in, right? Number one, who are you trying to reach? Okay, let's say we've established that. Number two, what do you want them to do? Okay. Number three, how are you going to measure that? That is where your sellers as a media company have to make sure they know what you're going to be held accountable for. Let's say it's click-through rate, right? And so we deliver a really great click-through rate, but you don't get any conversions and you go, well, I'm going to cancel. Well, wait a second. I got you a really great click-through rate. What you really were looking for was conversions, and we should have known that from the very beginning. Or what you really wanted was foot traffic. Well, as we're doing all of this, I need you to help me understand what's your foot traffic conversion, right? If you only convert 10% of foot traffic and you need X amount of sales, then I can figure out how many foot traffic that I got to send to you, right? It's just doing the math. We as media companies, especially as sales teams, need to do better.
All right, Rachel, I want you to put on your consultancy hat now, okay? The strategy, we've been discussing a lot about lead gen now, and it looks like that is not a bad topic to be on. But are there any additional new business opportunities publishers should focus on? Let's get into it now. What new business opportunities would you suggest?
So I first of all have to give it to, publishers and media providers that are already thinking outside the box and already doing really creative things. In conferences we've been at, we've seen some of these companies that do events or just venturing out of these like non-traditional revenue opportunities. And I absolutely love that. And and I'm so happy that at Visita we're able to be active in that space because that's exactly what we do. We help publishers and media companies expand their value proposition to small and medium businesses, to local advertisers. And what we see with many of our partners is that they're able to, we use a KPI. It's very common in SaaS, and I think it's probably common in your line of work as well, which is ARPA, the annual revenue per account or per user sometimes used. That is something we love to track and help our partners track as well. So it's about what can we add onto our existing customers? What additional value can we give them to increase that average revenue per account? And we've had partners that have increased, by 40, 50% per account within just a couple of months or within the first year of partnering with us. So I am, again, so excited to be in this space and so happy to be able to work with media publishers. And look, if you look at the answers that are on the screen now, if you look at this slide, these are just some of the services we ask the local advertisers, hey, is this even something you care about? Is this something you would likely buy? And would you buy it from your local media provider or publisher? And these things like payment collection software, scheduling software, marketing campaigns, email marketing, these happen to be solutions that we do provide at VCDA, and we do help. We white label them essentially. So publishers that work with us can sell these services to the small businesses they work with under their own brand, under their own umbrella. Sometimes they even bundle them with advertising campaigns. But what I would love for everyone listening now is to look at this screen and not say, okay, VC is the best company out there. They cracked the secret, they cracked the code, because it's really, these are very popular services, but it really is about thinking outside the box. And I'd love for anyone in this business to challenge themselves and come back into the office tomorrow and think about what can we offer more than what we offer today, and create those additional opportunities, thinking outside the box. We didn't even start talking about AI yet. There's going to be a whole section in today's presentation about AI. But let's just become the kind of mega shop, the superstore for these local businesses, and help them get everything they need in one place.
Todd, when you first saw this in the study, did anything here surprise you? Because there's two in there that I didn't expect. Or did you see this coming? That they're looking for a partner, because marketing does increase their business, but then you need to partner on all the aspects of dealing with those customers. Is that what I'm seeing here?
Here's why none of this surprised me, and that's simply because if you take a look at this is what media companies don't provide. Right? They're not going to put anything in here that the media company can provide. You as a media company need to figure out, let's go back to, you referenced Gordon Borrell, used to be 8 partners, then 5, then 3, then 2. Why? Well, number one, because some of the SMBs have started doing some of that themselves and they didn't need a partner for that, but more because those partners started offering more and they needed fewer partners, right? So you as a media company, if all you sell is your endemic media, newspaper, TV, radio, you're never going to make it. You've got to be able to sell everyone else's media. And then how about all these things that you're not going to build this platform? Visita's already done it. Why not just sell what they've got?
Okay. Well, Rachel, you owe Todd a little thank you there. He just turned the screen to you. But let's stay on the data if we can. Todd, you are the SaaS guy for E&P right now. You brought us the idea and the concept of writing each month on SaaS. Again, I'm an old man. Treat us. There's maybe someone in this audience who doesn't even understand what that means. Is it okay, Rachel, if I ask Todd to define that concept and then tie it into AI? Because I think we're about to flip that letter, if I could. Todd?
Sure, SaaS, software as a service. You use it all the time as an individual. If you have a Dropbox account, if you use Asana or Monday.com to do project management, anything like that. It used to be you put a CD or a disk in the computer, right? It's now just SaaS. But the key to it is, look at all of these right here. If you were selling as a publisher to some of your SMBs, invoicing and billing tools, and they adopted those 100%, they're never going to leave, because that's what churns out their invoices and their collections and everything on a monthly basis. Now you have monthly recurring revenue, whereas, I can take or leave my advertising campaign, right? Software as a service is all about building monthly and annual recurring revenue, MRR and ARR.
All right, so now let's get into AI. You can't talk SaaS. Maybe I'm wrong. Rachel, you can't talk SaaS without talking AI. You already teased us. What do you have to say to that?
You're so right. Like in 2025, a conversation about SaaS and software without AI is just like, what are we in the Stone Age or something? So AI, artificial intelligence took us by storm. It started with kind of, with ChatGPT, and it started with these little quirky use cases like, hey, I want a picture of my grandmother for her 80, her birthday cake or whatever it is, or write me a little poem for my girlfriend, or just these little like small quirky things that we do, for fun. But over time, SaaS companies and technology leaders have started realizing that AI has power to completely transform the way we use software, the way we use the internet, the way we interact with each other online. And I could talk about AI for hours, but for this specific context, I think if you look at AI and its potential for small businesses, so those local advertisers, this is mind blowing to me, because I've been now in VCTA, we are very close to the small business community. And something that I've seen from day one in VCTA is that small businesses are time starved. If they're running late in the office because a customer is calling or they're trying to close that last deal, to them, these are people like me and you. They're going to miss their son's basketball game. They're not going to make it home to have dinner with their family. They're going to miss movie night with their kids because they're staying up writing some sort of report for their customers for the next day. So whatever workload we're able to automate with AI, or at least make it happen faster, make it easier, that is tremendous value. That means for the person behind the people behind a small business, it means they're able to regain work-life balance. They don't have these big fancy teams working for them like in the enterprise world. These guys, some of them are mom and pop shops, and AI has the potential to transform these people's lives, literally. So AI is complicated because we're in the early days of it, right? Do people trust it? Are they interested in it? Are they willing to pay for it? And this is the question we ask regularly. We do these surveys at least once a quarter. And it's interesting to see how the attitude towards AI is changing, and the appetite to AI in the small business community is changing really fast. So many of them are already using it. And the ones that aren't, out of the ones that aren't, so many of them are interested in using it. And this is also an area of potential, in my opinion.
And if I may add, if you were to do the survey today, you're going to see that 33 be around 39. You're going to see that 28 be about 22. It's just going to continue and continue until they show up at someone's house and what's this AI thing? And somebody takes out their phone and says, "You're not using this," and then they flip. And I mean, I did it on a cruise ship with someone at dinner. He said, "What's this AI?" And I said, I met him the next day and I showed him, and he sent me an email like a month later how it transformed his entire business. So this is going to change. But can you get into the next slide? I love, because you're getting into the common case studies of what they're doing. Break this down, would you, for us, Rachel?
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're sitting there scratching your head thinking like, well, AI, that sounds like a big, this is big tech. How is that my local barbershop or, my manicurist or the person that, comes to my house to clean my gutters, how are they using AI? But the reality is that AI, the same way we use AI for small things like, tweaking our home assignment if we're in school, or writing a poem for a friend if we're going to a birthday party, these small use cases can be embedded into daily workflows. So we're already using AI in VCTA. So we've embedded it into our software, which we sell to small businesses. We've embedded it into the simplest, most day-to-day tasks, like answering customers that write to the business an email or text message, helping small businesses become smarter about their pricing. Hey, you're a local barbershop, but you're actually the cheapest in your neighborhood. You can afford to increase your prices by 20%. So providing those type of insights, helping them even just automate these tasks. And we spoke about automation and time saving, but do things like having their invoices generated automatically instead of them sitting hour by hour or creating these invoices one after the next. Scheduling is a whole other area of AI. Why do you have to sit there and go through your calendar to find when is the next available slot if you could press a button and say, show me the best ideal slot for this customer? So there really is no limit to what AI can do. And these are all live use cases that we're already seeing small businesses adopt as of today.
Todd, anything to add? This didn't surprise you, did it, Todd?
This didn't surprise me at all. And here's my sound bite to all of this. When you look at this from a publisher standpoint, and it's not just because AI is the topic of the day, right? When you think about this, publishers who bring AI-enabled tools to SMBs will be indispensable and not interchangeable, right? What this says is simply this. When you can help that SMB write emails and SMS campaigns, or when you can help them do graphic design, all these things, you are helping them to take a two-man shop and make it a 10-man shop, right? Without having to add the other 8 people. 10-person shop. Let's be perfectly correct about that, right? So that's what it comes down to is you're going to be able to provide value that you wouldn't otherwise be able to provide, but you don't have to do the staffing or anything else, and you will become indispensable.
What say you, and I saw this in the chat as well, when someone says, I already have I mean, I've heard this since I started consulting in 2000, and I hit the road in 1999, 2000, starting to travel, teaching, trying to get newspapers to understand that the internet wasn't a fad. That's how old I am, right? What's an email address? I had a publisher that was a client of mine that refused to look at a computer monitor, had his receptionist print out his emails, and he'd write the response and give it back to her. This is what the days I go to. And for years, I've heard the same thing. We have enough to sell. I don't want anything more. I can't handle it. I can't handle it. And you're laughing. No, but I've heard it for 20 years.
Oh,
Every time we said, you guys have got to start looking at the programmatic sphere. You got to start looking at video. They're looking at video. Social media. What's that? Social media is important to these people. Now it's search, guys. I could go on and on. Rachel, take it away. You've heard it too, right? What do you say?
Oh, I'm just laughing because like you're inside my head right now. This is the conversation I have with myself every single day because, we come up as a SaaS provider, we work with publishers, with media companies, and we're really giving them tools to sell to their customers. And, the conversation, that little dialogue you had with yourself, that's a typical sale conversation for us. Wait a second, this is what I sell. This is my bread and butter. How am I now selling AI? And it's a true concern, and I can validate it and I can respect it. And, we do have partners that say, you know what, we're going to do the whole training. We in that case, we usually do provide the training for them. We provide all the materials, and we've seen partners that actually were able to get their sales teams excited and on board, and this could work really well. The alternative is that we can take on some of that selling. So we can, or at least for a transition period, we work with some of our partners in the forum where, they'll sell the core services, or they'll get that initial interest from the customer, transfer the call, and then we're able to close the sale for them and help them, kind of onboard a customer into this environment where they're also selling AI and tech tools. So both opportunities are there. If you want us to train you, for you to do it yourself, if you want us to do it for you under your brand name, so it's not even like a referral, we'll speak in your voice. Those two options are on the table, and we currently have partners in both formats.
Todd, what do you want to add to that? I mean, you've heard that, I'm sure. You heard it at Deseret, did you not, for years? I mean, when a sales team screamed at you, I got enough, this is it, I'm not doing anything else, what was your response?
Yeah, so high five to Sammy. I don't even know Sammy, but in the chat there, that is the perfect question, right? As a chief digital officer, if Visita were coming to me and saying, hey, you should be selling all of these options to your SMBs, if I loved what I was seeing there, that'd be great. But my question would be, okay, great, but we're a media company and we're already selling this, and now we're going to sell this. I'm going to need help with that. So as a chief digital officer, I would say, okay, Visita, then what is your support? How are you going to support me? What does that look like, and so forth? So I would put it back on them as my partner.
All right, take it away. Rachel, I'm going to let it be your show from this moment on. And thank you, Todd, for turning that letter and getting us to Rachel to talk to me. Let's assume someone says, okay, I buy in. If I don't sell this, someone else will, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And I want to be one of those just north of 2, south of 3 that they're talking to. What do you offer, and how can they get some support here? Take it away.
Okay, so first of all, John here is going to drop a link in the chat. So it's just so you have it for later if you want to come back to our website and read more about, what we do and how we do it. But the information I wanted to share with you today is about In Tandem, which is Visita's flagship partnership program. So it's designed for anyone that's selling marketing solutions to the small business and local advertiser community. And it's built to help you grow your SMB proposition and do what you're doing, continue doing what you're doing, and continue what you're doing so well, and then some. So our solution is basically an app that you give to your advertisers. It's a white label app, so you can position it as your own technology. And through this app, this is where your small businesses and local advertisers are going to be receiving your leads. So Mike, if you can bring up that slide with the funnel, this is just an easy way to illustrate it. If you're today already managing campaigns and delivering leads, so you're currently doing the top of the funnel, but what happens on the second half? For so many publishers and media providers, there's very little transparency and there's very little control in what happens next. And we spoke about this today of how this is also a driver for churn. And if you click just one more click, you'll see how this whole funnel sort of comes together. And sorry, there's one back. I guess the animation didn't make it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, our designer would have killed me if I would mess up his animations somehow. So no, he's a very nice person. He would never be violent. So we love you, Felipe. He's so when we look at this funnel, if you look at the second half of the funnel, this is where we come in as partners to publishers and anyone in the marketing business. We help create that level of transparency where your SMB clients, your local advertisers are using your app to see the analytics of their campaigns, communicate with all the leads that are coming in on all different channels, see who converted and move those leads through the pipeline, which ends up as money in the bank because they can also use it for payment processing. And I know this sounds like a lot, like this sounds like a superstore solution. And the beauty of this is that we're able to go to market in many, many different ways. And we can also start small. We can start with like a slim lead management solution, which is really easy to onboard and easy to get people excited about. And then from there, we can grow and upsell and expand a proposition. And for those of you who are, a little bit more tech savvy, we are also API based. So if you wanted to integrate anything into this environment, you can really create your own custom SaaS solution based on our technology. And we spoke a little bit, or maybe we didn't, but we were going to just mention the margins. For anyone in the service business looking at this transition into the SaaS space, it's not, it's really about expanding your proposition, combating churn by creating stickiness. But there's also a significant margin opportunity here, which in SaaS, it's quite different than the traditional service industry. Now, I did want to address one of the questions I saw, or it was more of a comment actually. And then I'm not sure, and if I scroll back, I'm not sure I'll find it. But someone said something really interesting, and I think this is such a great insight about churn. How churn, comes for, as we saw, many different reasons, not seeing enough value from day one being one of them. But churn also comes because it's so easy, right? It's so freaking easy to just pick up the phone and say, hey, I don't want to spend my money with you anymore, or I want to go to somewhere else. And once you start providing more of this value to your customers, once they build their business, they're more invested in this relationship, right? This is what they're using day in, day out. And moving away from that is much harder and much clunkier than just picking up the phone and saying, hey, we're done. So this is also something to consider when you're combating churn, providing something that is a little bit more robust, that is a little bit in the small businesses day to day. It's much stickier. That's also something that can help combat churn. And if anyone would like to learn more about this, I hope Dawn put that link in the chat right now. So in Tandem by Visita, go check us out. If you want to learn more, we've been in this business for 15 years. Altogether, we serve over 150 small businesses worldwide, and we serve them through organizations like you. So publishers, media companies that work with local advertisers, work with us, and through us are able to resell technology to this segment that is so interested and so in love with the features we discussed today. So would love to continue the conversation. And we also have the report, right? We have the report that's available. Should be available, I think, within about a week or a week and a half, and we're going to be sending that out to everyone. And we do also have a special offer. We are so excited. This is our first webinar with ENP. We've been to one of your events. Hopefully, we'll be in another one real soon. And I think that I do have a slide for this, Mike, just about our pilot offer, which is really an exclusive offer for the folks that are here today and anyone tuning into the recording, where we're interested, if this is interesting to you and you'd like to have a conversation around setting up a POC, having us onboard some of your customers onto this solution so you can understand what it looks like, how it meshes with the rest of your business, how it resonates with your clients, how they're using it. With no long-term commitment, this is absolutely something we can do as part of this exclusive offer. So you can drop a little "I'm interested" in the comments right now, or you can contact us later through the website, or you can contact me personally at rachel@vcita.com, which I think is on the next slide, if I'm not mistaken. There it
There
is.
you are. And I think that was well said. Todd, any final thoughts on anyone who's sitting on the fence?
Not at all. Rachel nailed it right there, and I'm going to get out of the way so she can do it.
All right. Well, we want to thank obviously everyone here who attended this broadcast. Once again, you will be getting a link. You can share it with other coworkers of the recording. It will also have the slides you saw today. You'll have access to the report. And moreover, you'll get to learn a little bit more about how you can truly stop that churn by increasing the value proposition you bring to your local SMBs. I want to also thank our guest today, the one lurking in the chat room, Dawn Trubo, Business Development Manager at Visidia, Rachel Newman Shapiro, VP Product Marketing at Visidia, and of course, E&P columnist and just E&P friend and great industry leader, Todd Handy, founder of Disruptive Impact. Thanks so much for your valuable time. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, and thanks for tuning in.